All right, guys, today we're going to do lesson 32-2, special triangles in the unit circle. Okay, so before we actually get into this lesson, I want to make sure you watch the intro to the unit circle video first, because I'm going to be talking about the unit circle, and we're going to be using the values on the unit circle, so it's going to be confusing if you haven't watched that video where I'm getting these numbers from. The other thing is if you could print the unit circle that I attached, okay, on Google Classroom and have it out in front of you, it's going to make it a lot easier for you. Otherwise, you could just, flip back and forth to look at the unit circle on your computer or your phone or whatever you're using. But it's easier if you just kind of have a copy of it in front of you. That way you can just look at it while we go through these notes. Okay, so what we're going to be doing today is finding the sine, cosine, and tangent of an angle. Okay, so the way that we get these values is from using special right triangles, those 30, 60, 90, 45, 45, 90 triangles. And trig functions, sine, cosine, tangent, okay, those describe relationships between the sides of a triangle, okay, and its angle. Think like SOHCAHTOA. Sine was the opposite over the hypotenuse side. Okay, so that's how you're getting these trig functions. So we're not actually going to use the right triangles from the book. We're just going to jump right into using the unit circle, okay, to kind of save us some time. But the unit circle is this right here. So again, if you can have a copy of it on the side here while you do your notes, that'll be helpful. Or I'm going to use this one here also just so I don't have to flip back and forth. But remember, the unit circle has different values. We have some in, we have degree measures and we have radian measures. And remember, those are the same angle. They're just different units. Degrees and radians are just different units. Okay. And for each of these, we're going to have different ordered pairs here that go along with each angle. So when we're finding the cosine is the x-coordinate of the point at which the terminal side of the angle intersects the unit circle. So what they're talking about is if we have 45 degrees here, this point, then goes with 45 degrees. So the x value, let me get a regular pen. The x value is the cosine, so this would be your cosine. And the y value is the sine, okay? So that's what they're talking about. So the ordered pair kind of translates to this. The x value is the cosine of that angle, the y value is the sine. So let's jump into some examples here. Erase all this. Okay. So this first example, they want us to find the sine and cosine for each value of theta. So for each angle. So in A, we have 300 degrees. So all you really have to do is find 300 degrees on the unit circle and then look at the coordinate, the x and the y, and they'll tell you your cosine and your sine. So 300 degrees is right here. So we're going to be using this ordered pair. 1/2 comma negative root 3 over 2. Remember, the x value is the cosine, the y value is the sine. So if they want us to find the sine and cosine for 300 degrees, well, the sine then is our y value, which was negative root 3 over 2. And the cosine for that 300 degrees is just the x value from that point, which was 1/2. So that is all you have to do for these. You look at the coordinate plane, the x value is the cosine, the y value is the sine. Okay, so let's do the next one. It's negative 225 degrees. So it's going to be a little different because we have a negative angle. Remember, when we had a negative angles, we started at our positive x-axis and we would rotate downwards. Okay, so we're going to kind of be going in the opposite direction. So where we could find the negative angle is we kind of think about where the angle is on the positive x-axis. Remember, that's when we rotate upwards. Okay, and then we'll just kind of reverse it. So let's think. Here is positive 225, this angle. So that means I started here. I went 1, 2, 3 quadrants around, and it's kind of the middle line here of those 3 different angles. Okay, so if I work backwards then to find negative 225, I would start in this quadrant here. This would be 1, 2, 3 quadrants around, and I would use this middle angle. So this is where negative 225 would end up. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So we're going to be using this ordered pair. And again, cosine is the x, sine is the y. So if I answer the question here, what is the sine and cosine of negative 225? Well, the sine is our y value, positive root 2 over 2. The cosine is the x value, so negative root 2 over 2. And that one's done. Okay, let's do one of them in radians, and then you guys can try some. So I'm going to group this together, make it a little smaller. Okay. So example C, we have 5 pi over 6. So let's find 5 pi over 6. Erase all this extra stuff. So 5 pi over 6 is right here on my unit circle. So we're going to be using this ordered pair. Okay. So if I have to find the sine and cosine, the sine, I would just look at that ordered pair and use the y value. So the sine was a half. The cosine, okay, would be our x value. So that's negative root 3 over 2. Okay. So I think we'll skip D, and I'm just going to have you guys try these two problems here that I've made up, okay? They're values on the unit circle. So what I would encourage you guys to do is pause this video right now and try one where theta is 7 pi over 4. And 2 where theta is negative 90 degrees. So again, you have to rotate in the opposite direction. So I would pause the video here, and then you can try those answers. Okay, so if you did the problem, the sine for 7 pi over 4 is negative root 2 over 2. Cosine would be positive root 2 over 2. For number 2, negative 90 degrees, the sine would be negative 1, and the cosine would be 0. All right. Last thing we're going to do is finding tangent. So for tangent, we are going to have to do a little bit of extra work because tangent we have to find by using the trig function that tangent is sine divided by cosine. So we're going to be using our unit circle, okay, and then using the fraction to find the actual tangent. So for A, it's 300 degrees. But if I go back up to the top here, we already found the sine and cosine for 300 degrees. Okay, the sine was negative root 3 over 2, and the cosine we found was positive a half. So I'm just going to write that down here. So if I'm going to find tangent, then I have to take the sine of my function, so negative root 3 over 2, and divide it by the cosine, which was a half. Now remember, we don't actually divide fractions, we multiply by their reciprocals. So we keep the first fraction the same, we change it to multiplication, and we flip the other fraction. We keep, flip, multiply, right? So this actually can cross simplify pretty easy. Those 2's can cancel out. So all I'm left with then is negative root 3 times 1. So for this one, our tangent is just going to be negative root 3. You could put the over 1, but you don't necessarily need it. Okay. 450 degrees. Now that's going to be bigger than one rotation because that's bigger than a full circle, 360. So what we could do is use our calculators and figure out kind of where that is. So if I take 450 and subtract a full circle, 360, then that's actually going to be 90 degrees. So again, all I did was take 450 and subtract 360, a full circle. So that means it goes one full circle and then 90 degrees more. So if I'm looking at 90 degrees on my unit circle, right? 90 degrees would be right here. So we'll be using the point 0, 1. So 0 would be my cosine, 1 would be my sine. So let's go back down to here. So if we have 450, okay, I'm going to erase this work here so I have some space here. So this is for B now. So for 90 degrees, the sine was 1 and the cosine was 0. So if I'm going to find the tangent, then I would have to take 1 divided by 0. But if we look at that, we actually can't divide by 0. Okay, so this answer is actually undefined. We can't divide by 0. So therefore, there is no tangent of 450 degrees. There's no tangent of 90 degrees. Okay, so that's how you would do that one. All right, let's do one more together. I'm going to do one in radians. So for C, we have 2 pi over 3. So let's find that on our unit circle. 2 pi over 3 is right here. So there's my ordered pair I'm going to use. So the sine is root 3 over 2. The cosine is negative 1/2. So the sine was root 3 over 2. The cosine was negative 1/2. So if I find the tangent, then I would take my sine and I'm going to divide it by negative 1/2 or multiply by its reciprocal, negative 2 over 1. So this one's a little similar. Those 2's can cancel out, just leaving me with root 3 times a negative 1. So in this case, this answer would be negative root 3. So let's write that here. So for this one, tangent was negative root 3. Okay. I'm going to skip D again. So I'm just going to have you guys try one of these on your own right now. So if you go ahead and try, what is the tangent of 240 degrees? So you would find 240 degrees on your unit circle, find the sine divided by the cosine. So you might have to keep flip multiply, but give it a try and see what you do. So pause the video now, try the problem. Okay, so if you did it correctly for number 2, you should have got that the answer for this one is root 3. Positive root 3. Okay. All right. So that's the lesson of finding the trig functions using your unit circle. Again, you don't have to memorize this unit circle at all. You just have to know how to use it. So you just have to know how to read everything on here. But the ordered pairs, that's what you're using. The x value is the cosine. The y value is the sine. So I have a couple practice problems here from your check your understanding from this lesson. So you're welcome to go ahead and try these problems. I would maybe pause the video, so try them on your own, and then press play again when you're ready to see the answers. Okay, so here are the answers for this. So you can see how you did. And all right, that's our 32-2. Thanks for watching, guys.